In 1914, Texas Rangers rushed through the streets of Laredo ready to destroy the newspaper Jovita Idár worked for. But when the Rangers arrived, the young journalist was standing in the doorway, blocking their passage. Having written about the Texas Rangers' killings of Mexicans, Idár was aware of the danger she stood before, but she did not move. A teacher turned journalist turned activist and sometimes nurse, Jovita Idár is one of the most historically significant Texans that you've never heard of. Idár was born in 1885 in Laredo, but her story really began in 1903 when she became a teacher, a frustrated teacher. Idár was passionate about teaching, but she couldn't believe the abysmal living conditions her students lived in or their limited education. So she quit teaching and became a journalist, something very few women did at the time. First, she wrote for various newspapers under the pseudonyms Ave Negra and Astrea. Ave Negra meaning blackbird and Astrea referring to the Greek goddess of justice. Later, under her given name, she wrote about the many injustices Tejanos endured at the turn of the century, covering everything from lynchings to poverty and segregation, and especially highlighting the need for better education. Not just any education, but a free, bilingual, culturally inclusive education. Even though this was during a time when Spanish was banned from the Texas public school system, she wrote,
"We do not at all mean that our children should not be taught the language of the land that they live in. What we simply meant to say was that we ought not to disregard the national language because it is the official stamp of the peoples."
Her ideas were considered radical, given this was taking place at a time when Latinx Americans were routinely discriminated against. It was only a matter of time before her writing landed her in some trouble. Texas Rangers came for Idár in 1914 after she criticized an executive order issued by then-President Woodrow Wilson to send troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. The unafraid Idár successfully stood up against the Rangers, and although they returned later that night to destroy the printing press out of spite, her action was seen as a victory. I mean, talk about defending freedom of speech. She continued to fight for her community and helped organize the first ever political convention by and for Latinx Americans. Idár also founded the Mexican American Women's League, which provided free clothes, food, and education to women and children. Her activism knew no bounds or borders. During the height of the Mexican Revolution, she even crossed the border to nurse wounded soldiers. In the end, she settled down in San Antonio, where she created a free kindergarten, of course, and lived out the rest of her days. Jovita Idár was truly ahead of her time. The things that she fought for over a century ago, we're still fighting for those things today. As important as she was, and as relevant as she remains, it's hard to believe that Jovita Idár is not well known. Or is it? Texas just passed their first Mexican American Studies course in their public school system, just this year. No one else is going to teach us this history. It's on us to remember her and to share her story.